Jamie here. Jamie here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Friday, August 1st, 9:07 a.m. Welcome to August. Talk about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from the S&P futures in the red, albeit somewhat off the lows. Kind of continuation from yesterday. And, headlines would be it's wrapped around the tariffs. To me, it just feels like profit taking. At some point, we'll bounce here. But take a look. Small caps down almost 2% this morning. So, and I think they're down 4 sessions in a row this week. Just a rough week for small caps. So we'll see what happens here today. Catalyst after the close yesterday, right? Apple and Amazon, great earnings. And if you had painted a picture of what would be great earnings for Apple outside of updates from AI, it's like great earnings, right? Sales up, tariff concerns kind of alleviated. And then same with Amazon, right? Great earnings. The thing with Amazon, it's the margins, right? So and concerns around AWS, but the argument against AWS is that it's a demand, it's a supply thing, right? They don't have the capabilities to meet the demand yet. We'll see how today plays out. But yesterday at this time, markets were gapping higher. We had Meta, Microsoft, monster earnings, and I hate gap opens. Even small green opens are great, are fine, but large gap opens. Not saying they all get faded, but it just seems like that sometimes that's like the top for some of the stocks too for the day. So you can be excited for the day and look for some calls, and then you get the calls at the open, and that's the high for the day on some of these names. And then they could still be green for the day, but all you're watching is premium creep out of your calls. Not a fun feeling. Today we're getting the opposite, right? So futures are lower. I don't know if it's the last 3, 4, 5 days I've been saying about futures being down 1% for no reason. I mean, the S&P is down 1% here this morning. I still have call positions, right? So it's like I don't have my bear suit on. I don't, quite honestly, I don't want to see a big pull here, and I want to see 626 hold here on the SPY. But if not, I'm open to more put hedges, right? I think it's important to be open, and despite the fact that markets could be higher, or the possibility of markets could be higher next week. I got to be open to both sides. So I had 626 to 640 on the SPY as the range this week. I mean, it's almost like pretty much we've hit that. A little bit over 640 at times this week, and we're right here at 626 on the SPY. My ranges have been pretty good so far. Hopefully I can continue that streak there, but and give the ranges are important, not just to put ranges out there, but have context for making trades, right? It's kind of like individual names having support, resistance, and things important as part of the whole uh looking at the entire picture as well as individual names. Also, just take a look at the action again yesterday. It's similar to Wednesday and Thursday. I mean Tuesday and Wednesday, where it's like markets were green and we just kind of like slowly melted. Yesterday, instead of slowly melting, it was larger moves to the downside. So hopefully it's not the start of something big. And this morning we had the jobs report, and I think it's like we've been waiting for this weaker than expected jobs report since May, since June, since July, and then we finally got it today, and it wasn't even that horrible, right? 73,000 jobs created, estimates for like 110. Everybody was expecting unemployment rate to uptick to 4.2 from 4.1. It upticked, so I don't think that's it either. And I was saying it's the tariff situation, right? The only surprise here was Canada. I wouldn't even say it's a surprise. I'm sure that's going to get worked out. And then Switzerland, right? Switzerland is like one of the top 5 countries in regards to a trade deficit with the U.S. in regards to billions, dollar amount wise. And some of that's because they make good stuff, right? I mean, if you can make a Swiss watch, and it would be called in the U.S. It would be called a U.S. watch, right? It's the reason why it's called a Swiss watch. Chocolate, pharma, chemicals, So hopefully, the tariffs is not a situation where it prices out quality, right? You don't want to see quality products and services getting priced out because of tariffs. I hope that's not a situation, right? And it's funny because back in the day, the first term, Trump was saying that the Swiss was devaluing their currency. If you remember, Pinto has, I don't know, it was 2014. I always tell this story, but the Swiss franc used to be pegged, right? It used to be a flat. It was like a stable coin, right? It just it didn't fluctuate, right? And then one day the Swiss decided to unpeg their currency, and it just caused chaos. People got destroyed. There was some hedge fund manager did a video in tears saying he had to dissolve the funds. He feels horrible. He lost lots of people money, but anyway, so in Trump's term, his first term, he said that the Swiss was devaluing their currency because of trade, right? And then now this term, he's saying their currency is too strong. They need to take steps to devalue it. So anyway, I hope that doesn't again just free market. Hopefully the Swiss continue to make good products. Hopefully the US continues to make, countries need to do what they do best, right? Italy make good pasta or whatever. Everybody has their niche. Hopefully that continues. All right. So that's kind of the overall markets here. I like to say I play, the red days green to green to red to green. That would be an ideal situation here today at the open. Lock the rest of my Broadcom puts in, and then try and find some bounce plays. I'll be watching that 626 handle at the open. So that'll kind of be the game plan. If not, we can't break 626, then I'm definitely more open to adding some put hedges and maybe into next week, because you got to think the FOD, or the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, doubt, is just going to creep up over the weekend. Oh my gosh, PCE data came in higher than expected. The jobs number lower than expected. Tariffs are really starting to make impacts, and then all these politicians make their rounds over the weekend, and it's just going to be like this echo chamber of negativity, and then maybe we get a gap down Monday. Not the ideal scenario I'd want, but another scenario I'm open to. All right, so that's kind of overall markets. Yeah, small caps just disgusting this week. And you take a look, lower Bollinger Band on the IWM is 219. Is that what I have? No, 218.73, and here it is 215 in the pre-market. So just nasty stuff. Okay, well, nasty in context of April. This is nothing, right? This is this is like a 1 minute candle on April moves. All right, so now just individual names. So disappointing today. I would even say disappointing, similar to Apple and Amazon. Roku, great quarter, and it's like everybody's waiting for negative results from Roku, because the first thing that comes out after the Roku results is it comes through my feed. Roku lowers their full year revenue guidance from 4.5 billion to 4.1 billion. I'm like, where are they getting their information from? It says right on the shareholder letter, they raised their full year guidance to $4.65 billion from $4.5 billion. Not only that, they raised their profit from a loss of I think it's like 20 million to a profit of 30 million. So profitable. And then they raised their Q3 revenue guidance and profit estimates. So despite that, the stock is tumbling. And well, I wouldn't say tumbling. I'm saying it's at levels not seen since the start of the week, but just disappointing. The only good thing, I was on rant yesterday afternoon, and the calls were going into the green because stock was rallying a little bit. And then as it was hitting later in the right before the close, they were like solidly green, up 50%. So I'm like, let me take some off to cover some costs. So at least I'm not riding 100% position. So lock some in, and you never know. I put it on the watch list this morning. I'm like, is Roku like the Baidu? So Baidu, I'm always waiting for it to take the next leg to the upside, and then every time it has earnings or some kind of catalyst, it looks like it's ready to do it, and then it doesn't, and then a couple weeks later, it's back to where it was. And I hate to say it with Roku, it's like one of my favorite names to trade. I think it's one of the better growth stories out there. But I guess 13% revenue growth in a sector that I'm not saying it's saturated, but maybe there's competitive concerns or what have you. So and to me, when the name, Netflix used to be a big growth story back in the day, but they weren't generating profits. Then they became a cash cow monster, but they were still growing. Roku could be a cash cow monster and not grow. So maybe that's the concern. So I'm not saying I'm putting it on the do not trade list, and maybe it gets acquired at some point, but a name I'll revisit on some calls possibly. But I still have the August 15th, so you never know. So that's Roku. And then just some other names here. Broadcom was all the way down to 282 in the pre-market. I was licking my chops. The last of my 290s were going to be at least 15, 20 bags. So we'll see where it is. It's down to 286 here. I got some more of those Broadcom puts yesterday morning at the open, and the stock was at 303, right? And then I'm watching it, and it kind of got stuck down to 300, then back over 300, and I'm like, and the premiums were coming out of the 290 puts, and then it broke down to 298, and my puts were flat despite it dropping $5. So it was very frustrating, not easy holding puts, but then finally it started to break down in the afternoon, locked some of the calls in for over 100%, and then some more over 200%, and then they're going to be up. They're probably going to be 10 bags at the open, if probably more than that. So I'll probably have a couple left, so I'll close a few right at the open, and I'll hold the rest possibly for 20 bags would be nice. Still have some 280s. Those will probably open green, so depending on that, I might lock some of those in because I couldn't have done that. I mean, I could have done it yesterday, but at a loss. And then similarly, another name I was looking at for put service now. It's sitting at 934 in the pre-market. The 930 calls I was looking at for $1 probably gonna be like 10, 15 bucks at the open, but what are you going to do? But again, 626 on a SPY. If that can't hold, I'll look for spec puts. On the flip side, on for calls, Apple and Amazon look interesting. I mean, Amazon, you look, it's down here at 217, got all the way down to 213 in the pre-market earlier in the morning. Maybe it gets to 225 here today. So, I think there's some analysts coming out again talking about the AWS and saying it's like a best case scenario that the miss on or at least the margin issue on Amazon AWS is not Amazon's doing, it's the scale, it's the energy side of it things. So once they can pick up to meet the demand, I mean, the next leg of growth. So and I think some of the surprise too is because Microsoft had some good cloud numbers. All right, so that's that. Then last but not least here is JOBY, right? So JOBY, I'm looking in the pre-mark. I'm like, oh gosh, 1548. I'm like, okay, here comes 1495. Maybe it gets interesting again to add to my October strikes. And then boom, 8 o'clock comes out with news. They partnered with L3 Harris. Never really heard of them. It's a defense manufacturer, I assume. $53 billion company to talk about a partnership to work on a vertical takeoff and landing vehicle. So a hybrid, so not an electric and hybrid. I don't know what fuel, fossil fuels or what have you, in the military defense capacity. So, I mean, who had it on their? Did any of the analysts on their bingo card have a partnership in the defense sector? I don't think they did. You have to think this opens a whole nother possible addressable market. And I know Archer's in there, so I don't know what that looks like. So something I have to dig into. I'm doing a watch look at these other names. I haven't had a chance to kind of figure things out, but all the way up to almost 18 bucks here in the pre-market. It's trading at 17.28. I'll probably wait for the volatility to come out of it at the open, and then maybe I'll look to possibly add some more strikes. Maybe if it holds 17. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.